The next morning, as far as mornings go on a space station, Lasona barely made it to class on time, as she was not particularly excited to sit in Mr. Florge's military strategies class. As luck would have it, however, the teacher was late himself. The classroom was a large and metallic room with plenty of seating apparatus of varying types, and when Lasona entered, she noticed a different smell was present, as well as a different mood from the other students. Scanning the room, she saw what she was hoping for: humans. Even better, one of them was sitting in her seat, giving her an excuse to go talk to them. Within 3 strides, she was standing over the human seated in her custom-made seat. It was far too big for the human, and he resembled an infant sitting in an adult's chair. Towering over him with her near 3 meters, depending if you counted the horns or not, she looked at him with a smirk. "Alright, be in command of the situation. Show him you're strong and independent, that he wouldn't have to worry about you if you were his mate." He'd pushed back a bit, naturally, maybe saying that he was there first. Then she'd reluctantly concede, letting him have it while making him feel like he owes her. That'll get him interested, she thought. "You're sitting in my spot, human." As if someone had called for a fight, every alien in the class turned around to look at the confrontation. Dwight Dunn were notoriously short-tempered, and many wondered how the human would react. The human looked up and seemed a bit confused, and then scared. He hurriedly got out of her seat and began apologizing, the translator converting its odd sounds into words. "Oh, I'm terribly sorry, I didn't know. I hope I didn't cause any offense." Lasona blinked a few times, the wind taken right out of her sails. She sat down and wondered what went wrong. Humans were notoriously violent, judging from what she read of their history. They committed atrocious acts even upon one another, and often reacted violently or with defiance to those that wronged them. As she mulled over these thoughts, she felt a physical contact on her left side and turned to look. It was another human, but this one seemed to have some fire in its eyes. The other human tried to prevent it from speaking to Lasona, but it did so anyway. "Hey man, even if you're like this huge lizard, that was not cool." What came out sounded a bit different to Lasona and the other aliens. "Friendly greeting, fellow male. Calculating for your size and species, that action was reprehensible." This was what she had wanted, what she had expected from the humans. Everyone on this station and at the academy was so meek towards her, hardly able to express a differing opinion. It was a reputation her kind had earned over the years that made crossing Dwight Dunn usually a bad choice. She elected to ignore the insult that she was male and replied, "But this is my seat. It was crafted especially for me. No other seating object in this room would be adequate for me." Realization slowly dawned on the human's face, and he put one of his hands to his chin, considering her words. "Well, that makes sense, I guess. Sorry about that." It then went back to the other human, which proceeded to physically smack the braver one on the shoulder, then seated themselves on the floor, resting their bodies on the wall at the back of the class. She kept noticing their furtive glances every so often, trying not to get caught by her. Slightly disappointed, she turned her gaze to the front. The teacher finally arrived in class, exhausted and out of breath. A Wendlow, Mr. Flore stood out in a crowd due to a white carapace that covered his whole body, along with the array of 6 eyes that enabled his species to have 360 degrees of vision. The teacher looked around the class and finally found what it was looking for. "Oh, there you are! We've been looking all over the place for you humans." It took a few more breaths, stabilizing its body from the short, intensive burst of energy it had expanded. "How did you know to come here? We were supposed to come fetch you." One of the smaller humans seated at the front next to another human spoke. "We asked the other students where class has been held and followed the directions here." "Oh, you can already read Galactic Common. Excellent." Getting multiple species to agree on any one thing was quite an arduous task, but after half a century, they had managed to get a semblance of a universal symbol identification system by using the periodic table of elements. Under a microscope, all elements looked the same, no matter the species. As such, this made for the best way to recognize a symbol from one species to another. Every symbol of an element corresponded to a letter of a species' alphabet or equivalent system. For example, hydrogen could mean letter, first one from beginning of list. Such a system was needed in order to label electronics or locations. The Sofon scientists were working on a workaround to use the translator for such tasks as well, but it wasn't ready yet and would need an optical component to properly work. "Well, no matter. It seems everything is in order. May we have your names, please?" On the right side of the class, a human stood up. "I am Izumi. Pleased to meet you. She bowed before sitting back down. The student next to her then stood up. "My name is Laura. I come from Germany. I look forward to learning." In the back, the two humans leaned against the wall stood up together, then conferred among each other to see who was going first. "Hey guys, name's Barry. I come from America. I hope we get along good." Lastly, the final human spoke. "Hello, I'm Jean-Francois. I'm happy to be here and I'll do my best to meet your expectations." Clapping his four hands together, something similar to a smile showed on his face. "Allow me to officially welcome you to the Tarmina Academy as students. I am in charge of the student military program, so feel free to ask me if you have any questions." The smallest human, called Izumi, lifted a hand. "Is there a specific arrangement for seating?" "Oh, they didn't make seats for you, did they? I'll get that fixed for tomorrow. They will be custom made according to your size. You may then place your seat where you wish in this room." The human nodded, writing down a note on her electronic device. With a bit of extra work and some help, they can now connect to the ship's local communication system, allowing the teachers to send information to them. Now, let's jump right into it, shall we? Today we are looking at potential wartime scenarios and what plans or actions could be used to achieve victory. Here is the scenario. A strategic mine is in enemy hands, and possessing the mine would help turn the tides. But the system is heavily defended. How do you proceed? Use your pass to write an answer. You have 13 minutes and 49 seconds, then will present before the class. Using their electronic devices, the students got to work. However, the human students paused and looked at each other and the teacher. "Is there a problem, humans?" The one named Laura spoke. "Are there rules?" "You must follow the laws of physics, cannot use technology not yet invented, and are limited to what your species has access to." Jean-Francois cut in before Laura could muster a reply. No, what we meant more like actions not allowed, crime, something that would be in breach of some law." Confusion was apparent on the teacher's face, which in of itself spoke volumes regarding the answer. "This is war, there are no rules. Some rules get applied after the fighting is over, most commonly by the victors. How can rules be imposed before the winner is decided?" That's all we needed to know, thank you." A few intensive minutes of writing followed, with some head-scratching as well. This was rather uncommon for human learning, especially for the level of education this was meant to be. Still, they performed the task as instructed. "Alright, time's up. Any volunteers?" A yarn student got up, puffing his chest. Standing before the class with his pad, he showed his work. "Using superior yarn lasers, which can strike at 3 times the range of other lasers, I will snipe at them until they are forced to retreat, and then simply land ground troops taking over the mine." The teacher nodded, taking the student's plan in consideration. "A straightforward and decisive approach, excellent. Any thoughts on the matter, class?" Most seemed to be satisfied with the answer, only the human showing some signs of dissatisfaction with the answer. Unable to hold himself back, Jean-Francois lifted the hand. Yes, Jean-Francois, your thoughts?" This idea seems rather straightforward, but what would happen if the enemy also had such lasers, or other types of weapons with a similar range? The scenario seemed to imply the enemy possessed more ships than us. The teacher signaled to Hethort, the yarn, letting him answer. "Then more ships, more lasers. Always has worked before, why wouldn't it now? How about you show us how human would do it?" Jean-Francois wasn't a fan of presentations, even less so in front of a dozen aliens, but when life gave you lemons. He moved to the front, taking position where Hethort was, and cleared his throat before commencing. "Well, I have 2 ideas. The first is cheaper, but it has more ways it could go wrong. Using spies, I'd infiltrate the enemy nation, using them to covertly change the destination of the mine shipments, making them deliver it to me instead. The other plan, given that you mentioned the system is heavily defended, would be to tow an asteroid and hurl it at the mine's location. It would mean that we do not get the advantage, but we also negate the enemies, having spent few resources." Mr. Flores seemed rather shocked by his ideas, but nonetheless applauded. "That was a very interesting take on our scenario. Excellent even. How about Heshro?" The Noir, laying down on a small circular pillow in the back, stretched, extending his front paws all the way. Heshro got up on all fours and headed to the front, taking Jean-Francois' place. "Using a smaller fleet, I would initiate contact with the enemy, making them chase us, before striking with the rest of my fleet on their flank when they least expect it." The teacher thanked him for his idea, and asked for a volunteer, finding one in Laura. "Thank you. Using a smaller ship, I would slip past the enemy, detonating nuclear weapon 5 kilometers from the surface. Miners will die. When enemy fleet go away, we mine the minerals using special equipment to protect against radiation. If the small ship can't sneak by, use it as a suicide ship into a larger fleet. Bomb doesn't do much in a vacuum, but radiation should fry most electronics. The teacher blinked a few times, making sure he heard correctly. Nuclear weapon? What is that? Laura thought how to explain it in a simple way. It's splitting an atom. I'm only a layman, it would be hard to explain. It is done with an element that is near critical mass, if that helps. I see. I shall have to look into this. Thank you for your presentation. Do we have enough? Oh. Most of the other students had now put away their works, looking expectantly at the remaining 2 humans. Izumi found everyone in the room looking at her and blushed slightly before getting her composure back, getting up to do her presentation. Hello. If the enemy holds superior numbers and greater military might, then the solution is to target the population and economy. Developing a virus that specifically attacks that species, I would first deploy it at the mine's location. If they still persisted in defending the system afterwards, I would have to target agricultural sectors, forcing them to spread their fleets or risk having riots occur in their homeworlds due to food shortages. An interesting concept. I think we should take a small pause. Everyone's free to go eat something, and we'll continue after 72 minutes. Jean-Francois found it odd how specific the time specified was, but calculated that 1 human hour would likely be just as odd to them. His stomach growled, having eaten the last of his earth rations more than 8 hours ago. He was very excited, however, at the prospect of trying alien cuisine. As the students began leaving the class, the teacher signaled at the humans to wait for a moment, using his palm as a way to say stop. A moment of your time, if I may. I just wanted to make sure you are indeed human students, correct? Not experts in your respective fields? Barry answered that question. Oh, yeah. We're all going into, or a year in either college or university. Mr. Florge mulled over the words spit out by the translator. What do you intend by place of higher learning? Can you tell me more about human education? We start out with pre-kindergarten, like 4 years old, moving on up to primary school until 6th grade. Then it's high school for another 6 years until 12th grade, where we then proceed to either college or university when we're 18 and adults. Then it can vary a lot depending on the degree. I see, that is a lot of learning. You spend nearly a quarter of your life studying then. That does explain some things. Most of the other species mature much faster than humans, reaching the equivalent of adulthood in 4 human years. They're usually taught the basics they'll need and only ever learn advanced matters if their works require it. Laura stepped in quickly with a question. Are other species in general less educated than us? I would not say that, no. We tend to devote all our efforts on the geniuses, as they are more likely to provide results. In a way, these classes at the academy are more similar to your early high school years. If a student shows promise in a certain field, only then are they devoted the resources needed in order to train them. Otherwise, it would be a waste of time and credits. Finding students that possess the spark is our paramount goal. It is those students who propel us forward with new inventions and innovations. Anyhow, thank you for enlightening me. Please go eat. You'll find the provisions area on this deck, room 116. The humans excused themselves and walked together. Laura seemed to be the one taking this the worst. I can't believe it. They have such technology and their students are this far behind. What are we even going to learn here? Izumi tried to console her. Even if the difficulty of the material is lesser, does not make it inferior. We have much we can learn. There are dozens of new cultures and their way of doing things, including unknown biology and likely elements as well. Laura grumbled her assent, but still seemed sour. They reached the provisions room as their teacher had mentioned, still seeing a small line of students waiting their turn. At least, queuing was something they had in common. They watched the students from different species left with trays filled with vegetables or fruits, some even just having large slabs of raw meat on them. The line moved rather quickly, and they soon found themselves at the front, looking at an alien with 6 arms that looked awfully a lot like their teacher. Behind a counter, he stood next to many boxes and asked them what they wanted. Meat or vegetables? Jean-Francois was appalled at the offering. Wait, you don't cook anything? The only available food is raw stuff? The provisioner seemed intrigued by the line of questioning, but also baffled by the human's words. You want me to start a fire? Look, you tell me what you want to eat, I go fetch it. meat for predators or some assortment of fruits and vegetables for the others. This was the drop that made the glass of water overflow. It was one thing to be stuck on the space station with lots of odd aliens, but not having any cooked food? The French heritage of Jean-Francois cried at the injustice and railed at the inhumanity of it. To hell with decorum. If he couldn't have cooked food, he would go crazy. Give me both and I'll figure it out myself. He spat with more venom than intended. Omnivores were a rare breed, but the provisioner was aware of them and gave in to the human's request, if only to get rid of him. Jean-Francois' fellow students settled for the vegetables and fruits, while he went away on a mission to find a source of heat and a metal container.